was surprising was it's like the tech industry, but in food, because everything changes so fast. It's something that you knew yesterday might not be true today.
Today, I'm speaking with Enea Lelaj, Confectionary Specialist at Tilray Brands. In this episode, we look at how he develops and improves cannabis-infused candies.
It's like an R&D food job, except I'm doing it in the cannabis industry.
We explore why pivoting is a core part of product development.
You might have an idea in your head that, okay, I'm going to work on this week and then another product the next week, but maybe something happens that gives importance to another product and then you all of a sudden have to pivot to that's your first priority.
And how the constant problem solving in this role kind of makes you feel like you're going back to grad school.
Hi everyone, my name is Enea Lelaj. My title is Confectionary Specialist at Tilray Brands. And what that entails is basically, what I like to say is, it's like an R&D food job, except I'm doing it in the cannabis industry. So there's an added layer of infusing foods with active ingredients, whether that's THC, CBD, there's many different cannabinoids that you can infuse different, in my case, confectionery foods for consumers depending on what their needs are. And yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's definitely a unique role in terms of like, I know, it is definitely a part of the food and beverage industry. And like you talked about confectionery, is it just purely like chocolate? Is it like what? I don't know much about the industry, I'll be honest.
No,
but
I mean, it's
big.
It's a very like new industry, right? So it's, especially in Canada, I think it was legalized in 2017 or 2018 on the rec side. So since then, there's been so many innovations that have come through and the regulations keep changing every year, which is exciting. On my side, in terms of confectionery, the biggest is obviously gummies, which probably most people are familiar with, but there's also chocolate and then there's tablets as well that I deal with.
Okay. So your job is it to, I guess you're not reinventing chocolate, but I guess there's like a dynamic that you're adding ingredients to something. And not only does it have to have shelf life, but you're introducing something that's not typically in chocolate and you have to like make it last. So I guess my question is like, what does your role actually entail like day to day? Is it just studying the confectionaries? Is it developing the product side? What kind of things does it entail?
Yeah, so like you said, it's basically like a chocolate that you would have or a gummy that you would have in your everyday candy store, right? But you have this added layer of having to infuse it, making sure that it's homogeneous and the potency is correct. So we take a lot of concepts from food, which is exciting because, the food industry has been around for so many years. So maybe the innovations are kind of not, I don't want to say small, but like you're playing within the margins because your gummies or chocolate has been around for so many years, right? So everyone kind of knows everything that there is to know about chocolate or gummies, and like maybe you're playing with like very fine ingredient that you're switching in and out, etc. Whereas like with cannabis, it's so new that there's so many opportunities, and we have a lot of lessons that we've learned just studying the food industry and food trends. So from a day-to-day perspective, it changes every day, which is exciting. Like I work with the marketing team to kind of bring an idea to life. So they'll tell me, we found this white space, we think this flavor is going to take off, etc. And then I kind of reach out to different vendors, different flavor houses, and then I work with them to see what they have. I get samples, and then I make different batches on the bench top, different concentrations, etc. And then we kind of test them out and we do sensory studies, etc., to kind of figure out which way to go forward. And then once that's done, we do obviously pilot plant trials to make sure that it can scale up. And on top of that, there's obviously different things because working with like gummies and chocolate and tablets as well, it's you're always changing, right? Like the medium of the API that you're infusing. So it's exciting. Like some things, obviously chocolate is fat-based, and that helps when cannabinoids and THC, it's distillate, which is also an oil. And then you have gummies on the other hand, which is totally different, which is like a
Right.
water-based medium. So you take like knowledge from both sides, but it's different, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
it's
it
not as simple as just like adding the
exactly,
ingredient in and calling it a day. Like there's more to it.
exactly. So for gummies, we typically like to use emulsions versus chocolate. Obviously, that won't work because chocolate and water don't really
No, they definitely do
come to
not.
yeah
I have
come together.
lots of experience with that for sure.
Exactly. So yeah, so it's different every day.
Well, one of you used a term flavor house. Like what a house full of flavors?
Yeah, so I should specify. I call flavor houses like vendors that sell flavors or
Okay.
dyes, or and so you can reach out to them. They have accounts and salespeople that will be more than willing to help you out because at the end of the day, they want you to use their
Mm-hmm.
flavors for your finished goods or products, right? So if I have a new,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, Coca-Cola gummy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I reach out to different flavor houses that are in our portfolio that we work with closely. I'll be like, we're trying to develop this new gummy. Do you have any suggestions of flavors to use, flavors to mix? They might even blend the flavors together to get a flavor that would work for our desired product. And then go back and forth with them. They'll give us even ideal concentrations to use. And yeah, it's a collaborative process.
Wow. So there's really this relationship with like different vendors where you're not just only, your team is not only giving you answers, but you're also getting help from like outside sources to be like, this would work. And I guess that would be useful for like when you are new to the industry, that like you don't know everything out of the gate. And there's like,
Exactly.
I mean, I guess they're sales in a way, like they do want your product. So
Yeah.
they're the experts in their own product.
Yeah, exactly. And they're obviously very helpful because they want you to use their flavors or their dyes or whatever that may be because at the end of the day, once you lock the formulation in, not hard to change it, but it's you want to lock it in for a long time, right? Like you don't want to keep changing vendors and stuff like that. So it's they know that once you have this finished product, that you're going to be going to them for that flavor, for that dye for a long period of time.
I guess there's also that like added complexity too, because flavors aren't like, I guess we think of flavors as just like, oh, I eat something, it has a taste, but then flavors are also in their own right, like oils, or they're like, are all flavors that you work with like oil continuous or like water continuous? Like, are there different, is there I don't know. I guess I don't know
Yeah.
much about flavors, to be honest with you. So
Yeah,
I'm just
so
like, I guess I just think of like vanilla extract that you just like
yeah.
pour out.
So this goes back to again the conversation that we were talking about, like when you have a fat-based medium like chocolate versus a water-based medium like gummies, you're more likely to use a water-based or alcohol-based flavor for gummies because obviously it mixes in well. And then with chocolate, you're more likely to get or use an oil-based flavor, right?
Mm.
So in that regard, you kind of have play around with what your end product is.
Okay. Huh, that's a lot of like added complexity, but I mean like I guess that's obviously like why your job exists or to be able to figure out those factors. And I guess honestly just getting to some of the more like nitty-gritty because I think just with tools because like it sounds like you've mentioned many times like going back and forth testing this, testing that. Do you just like do you have any like typical tools or like systems or just like how do you keep track with it? Because I feel like this could get really derailed really fast. So like do you just stick with a notebook or like how do you work?
So, yeah, me personally, I like to have everything written down. So I have a big Excel sheet that I track all of all of the tests and the dates and the results of those tests
Hmm.
because like you said, you have different work centers that you're working with, different operators, different products. So you have to be very organized. You're testing these things at many different concentrations, and sometimes you also have two flavors that you're trying to incorporate in a product. So it's not as easy as saying, okay, I want both of these flavors to have the same concentration. Like you have many different factors, right? So for me, I like to keep like an Excel sheet, and then also on a day-to-day basis, I have a notebook where I write everything down that I have to do for that day and all the trials. So I do have like a hard copy that if worse comes to worse, my file crashes, like I could go back and kind of piece the things together, because also at the in the lab, you can't bring your computer with you and have like the formulas in front of you on your computer. So I like copy them onto my notebook and take them in, and obviously have them all in there. So that's how I like to stay organized. Obviously people will have their own ways, but yeah, it's a lot of like multitasking, and it's a lot of understanding what your priorities are, what
Yeah.
submissions are coming up first, and then you also have to be able to pivot quickly, because you might have an idea in your head that, okay, I'm going to work on this week and then another product the next week, but maybe something happens that gives important like gives importance to another product, and then you all of a sudden have to pivot to that's your first priority. So being fluid.
Sounds like it. I mean, I guess you got a lot of a taste of that back at school, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
it's true. It's true. I mean, it's school is especially in grad school, it was very like kind of flow at your own pace. So I think like you put in what you put out. So like you don't really have someone, or you don't have to have results by a certain time, but obviously you are like the person that's responsible for your own work. You have that responsibility at work. It's just there are more people that rely on you. So that's obviously the different facets. So graduate school is beautiful because you can, you have a new finding, and then you're like, it might not relate to your project, but you have that flexibility and that freedom of being like, oh, this is cool. I want to explore this further for like maybe a week or 2 weeks. And then you know that in 2 weeks you can just go back to your research or whatever that may be, right? So that's the beauty of grad school. In industry, it's a little bit harder because obviously you have deadlines and submissions and other people relying on you. So
Yeah. No, that's a good comparison. Definitely the part about being able to explore, your research, and depending on who your funding partner is, you might be able to just fully go all in on
yeah,
that random thing that you found interesting. But I don't think if these two flavors end up creating this texture and it's not the texture you want, well, you're not going to be exploring it probably for that long.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I actually think that's like a perfect segue because we've kind of talked about grad school and I've introduced it, but for those listening, they might not know how you got there. And I'd love to just talk about like that transition from school to here. So just like talk about your degree, talk about that grad school, a little bit experience, and then like how you got to this spot. So just walk us through a little bit of your career journey.
Yeah, so it's actually it's not a straightforward path. I didn't even know that food science was a thing going into undergrad. So I started my undergrad at TMU, or Ryerson as it was called before, at doing chemistry. So that was my undergrad. It was very like theoretical science based chemistry, physics. You do like organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, but there's no food chemistry or food science courses really. And then as I was going into my fourth year, I made a promise to myself to kind of be open and like go, because I didn't really know what was next, right? So one of my friends mentioned like a presentation that was being held at the CUI, which is where our lab is. And so it was through that presentation, it was a visiting professor, and it was like totally not related to food science or food chemistry. It was an organic chemistry presentation. I went there and I met Selvin, who
Very,
we
very
yeah we
amazing
both know.
scientist.
Yeah, so I owe a lot to him because I met him. I just started a conversation with him, and we were just talking about how I really always gravitated towards more practical science versus theoretical science. And when he was telling me about his research on chocolate that he was doing at the time, really like spoke to me, and I was really intrigued by it because I was like, it's so cool to think that you're doing this research on something, and then at the end of the day, you could see this product on the shelves that you walk by it on a weekly basis, right? So that's kind of what drove me towards that path. And then I just by chance sent him an email asking if he needed any volunteers, and he said yeah. And I still have that email. It's a very lovely email because he's like, if you want to be my volunteer, I ask a lot of you, but it's a very rewarding process. And it was true because at the end of it, I was able to get a publication from it, and I'm very grateful to him for that. And so I started in the lab at that time, just volunteering, and then I transitioned from volunteering to doing an undergraduate thesis as well. And then after that, COVID hit, and I knew that I wanted to do a master's because I was enjoying my time at the lab. Like everyone, it's more than a lab, really. It's like a family, like we said. And so I transitioned to doing my master's degree through that, and I was working on chocolate. I was making chocolate every day, which not many people can say. So
The lab smelled good.
yeah, exactly. And I had 2 KitchenAid mixers making chocolate every day. So you can't complain when that's your master's degree,
No,
right?
you can't. No, for
So
sure.
yeah, and then stuck with that, and then I ended up with my current role.
Okay. Well, I love that there's like it shows that like I guess is it serendipity or just like the right person at the right time and the right
Exactly.
conversation and you
Yeah,
never know where your life's and being open I think is really the key, but
exactly.
also like trying like I like that you reached out and was like I'd like to volunteer because you didn't know if you were going to like it. Like you weren't, oh my God, I'm so passionate about food science. I'm going to do everything in my power. It was just like, I'm open to this. I'm going to try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think being open has always served me well because I've always been kind of like a go with the flow type of person. But I remember at the beginning of my undergrad, I was more like not closed off, but I had a select few group of friends that I would do stuff with. But then in my upper years, I kind of started opening myself up more, and that was really rewarding and led me to where I am now. So I think that's really like what I would say to anyone in my position. Just be open because I think a lot of people kind of have an idea of what their life is going to look like or their path is going to look like. And 95% of the time, that's not what it's going to be like. So just be open, be excited, be curious to explore different ideas, and yeah,
It's really good advice.
see where it's going to take you.
For sure. Like you never know. I mean, I also started at volunteering at like a lab. Like I did want to go into food science and I really enjoyed it, but I never knew that it was going to lead me all the way to PhD, just like starting off like, hey, can I help you in the lab? And like
Yeah,
there's so much flexibility when you're in undergrad to try different things, to like reach out to different groups. And I think like even just being like, can I shadow you for like a day? Can I just look at your lab? Or like you might not always be able to do that, but like it exposes you to so much, like being on university campus or being on a college campus. There's just like so many things in one place that you can check out. And it's like
yeah.
it's kind of like brought to you. You just have to go look for it.
Exactly, yeah. And you probably agree with me, but like which graduate student wouldn't want a volunteer to help them out with their research, right? It's a great way to kind of open yourself up to a whole new world and understand if academia is the route that you want to go to through, or maybe you don't enjoy it and you volunteer for a couple of months and you realize that you don't want to go down that route and you want to go straight into industry. It's also a
Yeah.
great tool for
Yeah.
that as well, right?
Hold on. Did you start at the same time at the lab as me? Like, did you start right before me or right after me? I feel like we started at the same time.
I started it, so my graduate degree or like my
Well, even just like around, because I
I
don't
think you
know.
started before me. You started before me because you were in the old lab as well, right?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm saying from like the grad, because I did the working for a bit and then I came
Yeah.
back. So it was, I started 2019. Were you volunteering in 2019 or starting
I was
masters?
vo I was volunteering in 2019. I started my master's in the fall of
Okay.
2020.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. See, two different people, same lab,
Yeah.
different paths already. I
Exactly.
love that. And hey everyone, just jumping in for a second to say if you're finding this conversation inspiring and you're curious about where a career in food and beverage could take you, then you'll definitely want to check out Careers Now. CareersNOW has an entire student resource hub where you can explore real stories from Ontario's food and beverage processing industry, including employer spotlights and co-op experiences at companies like Conestoga Meats, Synopta, and Gailey Foods. It is a great way to see what jobs actually look like on the ground level and discover the wide range of roles that are available. Head over to careersnow.ca to start turning your passion into profession now. Thank you to our friends over at CareersNOW for supporting this podcast episode. Now let's get back to this conversation. I guess this would be a good chance to talk about just like transferable skills, because I think a lot of people do struggle. Like you're doing what a lot of people want to do, going from masters to like a job, and like that is a struggle. So I guess like two questions I have is like, what skills do you have that you use currently in your job that you used in your masters? And then I guess two, like people ask like, how did you get your job? I think like maybe that's maybe that's a very personal question, but like I guess like a lot of people do wonder, like they struggle going from masters to industry.
Of course.
So okay, well I guess that's like a two-part question. I guess let's start with, how did you get your job, or like how was that transition?
Yeah, so how did I get my job? I think I don't have a super cool story for this one. It's just like anyone else. I graduated and was applying like a madman. And obviously you go through that period where you're not getting any interviews, you're not getting any replies, and you're thinking like, man, am I ever going to get a job, like, et cetera, et cetera. But then luckily enough, I was able to go and interview for this position, and they liked me and they hired me. So it was pretty straightforward. I think what you can take away from that is, from my side, like, don't be discouraged by the rejections. Just keep applying. I do feel that like if the opportunity is right, it will present itself, and you just have to keep putting your best foot forward, and you never know where you might end up. I never thought that I would end up in the cannabis industry. I just saw confectionery, and then I thought I was doing confectionery with my master's degree, and so that's how those things lined up. But if you're a food scientist in a food industry or like a food company, it's I would say the same, if not slightly different. But yeah, like, be open again.
Yeah, no, I think again, I wanted to point that out too. Like I liked it, honestly, the fact that it's just, I applied for a job. And obviously there's a lot more to it, but like I think people think that sometimes you don't get a job. Like it feels like a lot of people say, I apply, and then I never hear back. Yes, there are times when you can apply, you get an interview, and you get the job.
Yeah.
Like, it does exist.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, everyone says like having connections or doing that, and obviously all of that helps. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you also have to do the traditional apply. You're not going to have a connection everywhere that has a job opening, right? So I think, and don't have an idea. Yeah, don't have an idea of like a job that you want to do also, because, you know, especially coming out of school, you have to be a little bit humble, and like you kind of have to take what you can get. And not that that's what I did with this job. I got lucky, obviously, because I love my job. But if you had asked me like, oh, would you work in the cannabis industry, I probably would have said no. But then I was like, this is a cool opportunity. Yeah. And then look at where you are now.
Has there been anything that's like been surprising since you were like, was there anything now that you were surprised to even, like it wasn't something that you expected to do, and then now that you're here, is there like even more misconceptions that you had that you're like, oh, maybe I assumed something differently, and then it's not necessarily the case? Or like, was there anything that surprised you once you got into this role, just in general?
No, I always say what was surprising was just the industry as a whole. I always say when I talk casually, it's like the tech industry, but in food, because everything changes so fast, and it was like a boom, right? So it was like when it first got legalized, there was like this boom, and like it was like this race to have all of these products out in the market, and then slowly started to rationalize a little bit, and then now we're here where we're kind of like in the middle. But everything changes so quickly. So like in the past year, they approved like multi-packs, so you can go now and buy 10 packs of gummies, for example, at your dispensary or online. So there's always like so many regulations that change because it's such a new industry. So it's like something that you knew yesterday might not be true today. So it's always constantly evolving, and that's exciting but also like scary because you have to keep on your toes. And so I think that that's the surprising aspect of it, like how much things change and how quickly those things change.
It's like two sides of a coin. Like there's a lot of regulation, but then it also is changing too. So it's like dynamic. And I guess like
Exactly.
comparatively to something like just a typical chocolate bar, like the regulations do change, but it's not like in 6 months the regulations of a chocolate bar are going to go like totally different. But in your industry, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's food regulations that apply, and then there's also the Health Canada regulations from a cannabis and like active ingredient standpoint that also apply. So you have to be well versed in both, and like that comes with experience. I wouldn't say I'm an expert or anything, but I'm learning, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. I will put it that way because you're not like doing the same thing, and like there's always like thought about, oh, what's the next thing that's going to change, and like being on top of that and being the first ones to kind of innovate in that space is
Right.
exciting.
And then I guess I'm going back to the other question that I kind of missed was just the skills that you use from your master's degree. Because I think one thing I've learned is that I feel like a lot of employers don't actually recognize how many you yes, you're in school, but you're essentially a researcher. Like you're doing a lot of the similar things. Maybe you can talk about it a little bit more, but like what skills have you noticed that you use directly in your master's that you're now using today in your product development role?
Yeah, I think the number one skill that I would say is the ability to find the answer to questions that you might not have in the moment. You know, there's a lot of problems that show up on a day-to-day basis, and I guarantee you that most of the time you won't have the answer. But I think what graduate school kind of prepares you for is, okay, I did this experiment and it went well, but then, okay, it went well or it went poorly. Now I have a million more questions. Like, how do I answer them? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, like, what do I do from here? What does this mean? Like, if I do this, will this happen or will that happen? So, like, you have all of these questions, right? So, I think graduate school is perfect for understanding and learning how to search and find information that's relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve. In graduate school, it's a little bit more nuanced and specific because you're working on such a like a micro level a lot of times. In industry, it has to be a little bit more high level. You have to keep like the overall project scope in mind, etc. But overall, I feel like that's the skill that's helped me the most. It's learning how to find the information that you need to accurately answer or solve a problem. So that would be one of them. The other one I would say is definitely collaboration. In grad school, like sometimes you feel like you're on an island a little bit, but think especially in our lab, we have a lot of like collaborative aspects to it. Like I said, we feel like a family, so you're always collaborating or asking questions about how to apply someone else's research to your research in terms of like trying to figure out the answers to something, but also from the aspect of at the end of the day, like we're all working
Right.
on different projects, but we're technically kind of
Yeah.
all a team still, like under the same roof, right? So I do think that like collaboration is a big deal. And I would encourage people like in their graduate schools, like I find that I've been to other labs that where it's more isolated a little bit and
Yeah.
people just put in their headphones and then they just work. I think in our lab we do a good job of like collaborating and working together to solve problems, even though you don't technically need to do that for each other, but it obviously helps and makes the space a lot more inclusive. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are really good ones to point out because it's in the first case, it's okay, I don't know the prob. I think it's so important because like yeah, you're always in graduate like it's like on a daily. It's like, I don't know. I know this is a problem. I don't know the solution. I'm either going to A, talk to someone, I'm going to read about it, I'm going to look it up. Like, there's just, you start to figure out faster ways to find the answer or find the person that knows the answer. And that's such like a valuable skill, it seems like, in your workplace, because even with the flavor house, like, I don't, you might not be an expert in flavors at this point, but you're like, okay, I know I can talk to this flavor person at this house and they're going to help me with this answer. So
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think another one is like being creative, thinking outside of the box. You know, like as a product developer, as an R&D person, you have a lot of say in how the product is going to turn out, but people think like it's very straightforward and you have like this matrix of experiments that you just work on every day and you just mix things together. And yeah, you do that, but a lot of it is being creative because every product that you make is kind of like a work of art. Like it's a bunch of things that come together that might not work individually, but when they come together, they make an explosion, and like it's a great product. So yeah, like I think being creative is also like doesn't get talked about enough because you know you think of scientists as being very analytical, but like creativeness is a big
yeah, and
aspect.
also working with the tools that you have to study what you have. Like sometimes you're not always going to have the bet. Like so you don't always have the money to do something, and you kind of got to be creative to
Yeah,
figure out how am I going to
exactly.
do this? How am I going to make this piece of equipment work? Oh, I might not be able to get this piece of equipment fixed soon. Is there another alternative that I can do? And I bet like a lot, maybe it might be different for larger companies, but if you're more in like the startup space or if you're in like a smaller company, they don't always necessarily have access to everything that you want to use or that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And a lot of the times too, you kind of have to come up with a creative reason to why they should invest that money in this equipment, right? Like this might work better if we have this equipment, et cetera, et cetera. But you can make like a business case. But also, like you said, without that equipment, how creative can you be to find
Yeah.
the answer?
Yeah, there's just
Yeah,
so many like there's so many ways like you have to sell your idea. You figure out ways in grad school to be
yeah.
creative, how to manage your time, how to, you did say collaboration, and I do think that it might be that can be a struggle in some labs, and then in others it's much highly creative. So I would encourage, like, yeah, if you're not a lab that's collaborating, you should probably start figuring out how to do that. Even at the
Yeah.
very least, just talking more with other people. I think that totally helps. At the very least, it makes it more enjoyable to work. Let's be real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, in the industry, it's a little different because you have people with so many different backgrounds. So it's also nice to like have a team where like you're specializing in the same thing, food science, and then you kind of have these like I think what's great about grad school is that you have these like challenging conversations about your work, whether that's through like a group meeting where you're presenting your research and you get challenged on is this the best method to approach that problem, or whatever it may be, right? So I think that kind of gives you like the starting point about like thinking more deeply about the work and the projects and the experiments that you're going to do even in industry because yeah, like my day to day, like what people don't really see is like the plan that you have to put in before you do the experiments. So you have to do a lot of like background work and think about how you want to approach the problem and then build out the experiments from there, right? You're not like a robot that just shows up and you
Yeah.
already know like the experiments that you're going to do or like the studies that you're going to take to fix or to make this product. So a lot of the time it's like me on a whiteboard trying to work through a problem. Like how do we want this texture in the gummy, like what helps, like what ingredients, what concentrations, and then you kind of like figure out like which experiments to do from there because also you don't want to go in there and do 100 experiments if you don't need to, right? Like time is money. So it's good to like think outside the box and like understand that more work and like just doing 100 different experiments is not the right way forward. It's work smart, not work hard well, work hard, but
Work,
you know what I
yeah,
mean.
don't work hard for the sake of
Yeah,
working hard, just to
exactly.
say, to feel that you were working hard. Like, get the
Exactly.
results too.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point. And I guess it also shows that like grad school can be a little bit of a good taste if you know if you want to do research or go into this field. Because if you're really, I know there is differences between industry. I get that, but it kind of can give you an indication if like you don't like reiterating and doing this type of stuff, it might not be the best path for you. So like I know that you've spoken about being like open and trying new things and that the industry is evolving a lot, but like what about your role? Do you like is there skills that you're evolving? Do you see it changing a lot in the future? I guess it probably is. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes and things like that. Like I even think about, even though I was not in the industry, like back then, it was all about like infusing distillate, right? Now it's kind of shifted towards infusing emulsions because obviously, when you ingest an emulsion with an API, it like the onset time is much quicker than like just the oil, right? So a lot of the skills that are changing just from like a product development perspective is kind of like figuring out how to infuse emulsions into everyday products and how to make those emulsions stable. So a lot of the work has transitioned to stability and ensuring that like through commercial processes, the stability of the active ingredient maintains its potency over a period of time. So 6 months, 8 months to a year. So that's the challenge from a technical perspective. From like a personal perspective, I want to like a challenge for me is I want to improve my leadership skills. Like I just graduated, not just graduated, but I graduated from grad school and have kind of come into my own in this role. And I think the next transition period is going to be learning how to be a leader and how to challenge people around me and coworkers, direct reports if that may be, and learning how to manage that on top of what I manage right now. You have a bit of like a taste of that if you have like an undergrad in graduate school, and it's leadership is one of those skills that's I don't think it's talked about a lot, but it's very important because being a good leader, delegating properly, knowing what to expect from your team, it's very important and rewarding. And I struggle with that. I always have always been the person that's like I want to be kind of like loved by everyone. So that's not always going to be the case. So I think like it's something that I want to improve on myself going forward and becoming a good leader and learning how to lead my team properly.
Yeah, no, those are important skills to learn. And you're right. Like you get a little bit of a taste of it in grad school, but then, as you progress through your career, I guess you make that decision. Like, am I going to stick in this role or am I going to try to change
Yeah,
it and lead? Because there's definitely that's a path, and then there's another path as well. But if you're looking for growth in a company, a lot of times it does come through leadership and
yeah,
being able to manage. And it's it's tough because sometimes you have to acknowledge your own faults as
yeah,
well before you can start leading others.
yeah. I think one of the toughest things is you're used to having someone make the decisions for you and like influencing those decisions a little bit, but at the end of the day, someone makes the decisions and then you go ahead with that. And like on the surface, that looks easy, but at the end of the day, when you have to make a decision that impacts a lot of people, you have to make sure that that's the right decision and you have to own it because you're not gonna please everyone with every decision that you make, right? So at the end of the day, you have to have a very strong conviction to know that what you're doing is the right move. And then also if you did the wrong thing, be able to admit your faults, like you said.
It's an ongoing process, and I can see why. Like, it's not something that you just choose one day that I'm going to do.
Yeah,
Like, it takes
yeah.
time and mistakes and
Experience,
like
yeah.
experience. Absolutely. I guess thinking about with experience and like thinking about students and the role that you're currently in. If you could give advice about what someone should start doing right now while they're in school for a job that would be similar to yours, what would your advice for them to be to start working on right now? So let's just say like a technical skill and a soft skill.
Yeah, technical skills, I have two that kind of coincide, I guess. Like it's easy. Like we work, well, I don't want to like make it seem easy, but it's really your barrier to entry is not that tough because we eat food every day, right? So I think I think an easy thing that you can do at home is mix things together. Like people cook all the time, try something new, try a new recipe, try flavoring something differently, right? Understanding which flavors go well together. Okay, this one came out bitter. Why did it come out bitter? Maybe I added too much of X ingredient. I have to add more of Y ingredient, right? So just experiment, like everyone has a kitchen. Go out, buy funky ingredients, buy something that sounds cool. And then to go along with that, I would say, like, train your palate. Like, try different things, learn the way that those things taste, like understand that what tastes good to you, what changing slight ingredients tastes like, because one of the aspects is making the food, the other aspect is tasting the food, right? It has to taste good at the end of the day, but
Yeah.
you also want to have a palate that's trained in a way to identify if you're on the right path or on the wrong path. Because if you're the one making it, chances are you're probably going to be the one trying it or one of the first people to try it. So you have to be able to kind of like identify if you're on the right track or if you're not on the right track, right? So I think definitely having like that sensory understanding of it, like feel it, squish it, whatever it may be. Uh, it's like your own sandbox, your kitchen, especially when it comes to food. So that's what I would say from a technical perspective. And then from a soft skills perspective, I think, we're in this world where like everything is becoming so digital and everything is, you don't even need to get up from where you are to get whatever you need. You don't have to talk to anyone. So I think like from a soft skills perspective, talk to as many people as you can in and around you, open up conversation, open up dialogue. And you might not be feeling it that day, but it just starts with like a, hey, how are you? How are you doing? How's everything going? Etc. And like you never know what you might find. Like, and it also builds your social skills and your collaboration, because in the role that I'm in today, like I have to work with marketing, I have to work with QA, I have to work with the operations team, I have to work with regulatory, I have to work with maintenance sometimes. And all of those people kind of speak their own languages because of their backgrounds, right? So if you talk to more and more people, the more people you talk to, the more you understand how to speak to different people who might not have the same background as you. And so tailoring that really improves not just your communication skills, but also your collaboration skills.
I think that's the perfect place to end because I think that's really good pieces of advice, Sydney. I think that it's been so wonderful to see you go from, I mean, I've kind of seen you through the journey going from
Yeah.
that volunteer up to working and I mean, I've stayed here by choice, I swear. Um, but seeing you transition from that and seeing like the skill set and then how you've gone from it, it's been amazing to see. And it's also nice to see like you can have a chemistry background. You can go to this, you can go that. And then there's all these different, like the world's your oyster. There's
Yeah.
just so many different opportunities and you can and try different things. So thank you so much, Enea, for coming on the show. It was great to talk with you.
Thank you for having me. It warms my heart, honestly, coming back, visiting the lab, seeing everyone, seeing you, seeing everything that you're up to with the podcast. And I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see what you do next.